My wife and I moved to the Neepsend, Kelham area about 10 years ago, and like many of the kind of outer city communities, they've all been transforming, they've all been trying to accommodate more and more and more people. And for the purposes of cleaning the place up, the council decided to close down and block 3 or 4 roads that came into and out of this area. They've now imposed this CAS scam, which these roadblocks now force us all to enter the CAS zone. We don't have an alternative way in or out without coming in to the CAS zone. Now that area is not part of the zone, so we never even had to even enter this zone, but now we do. So for me to just go to work, just to leave home, is going to cost me £300 a month, and that's just to leave the area that is not in the CAS zone. And I previously didn't even need to enter the ring road, but now I'm being forced to, as is everybody else in that area. We're seeing the businesses in that area close. We're seeing businesses crying out for help and support because they're not getting the footfall. We're seeing them folding because they could project not too far in the future that they're no longer going to have a business, and they're having to make the decision now. They can't wait to see if there's any benefit to what we're doing here, because the transformation's happening so quickly. And to be honest, that's all I've got to say about it. I mean, we know that this is part of a much bigger agenda, and like the gentleman said earlier on, it's important that we do keep it about the CAS today. It's important that we get that message out there to all these people that are walking past that aren't quite sure what it's about, other than, you know, helping the environment. What's so bad about that? Well, we all know, because we've probably done 10 minutes of research. We can sense that, and we can see that it's not actually for our benefit. It's for the benefit of the people that aren't actually here and probably don't even live around here. So thank you very much for everybody. The footballers that were all, the football supporters that were all going past singing, it's very much like was written in 1984 and Brave New World. It's all bread and circuses. And you should all give yourselves a round of applause, because you've seen through that and you're here to stop this agenda continuing to not only the city's demise but our own. So make sure that you shout loud in the march that we're just about to do in about 10 minutes, I believe. 8 minutes. I'm not going to stand here for 8 minutes, I'm going to leave it at that. But thank you very much. It's great to see all these faces and all these people here that's here for the right reasons.
Greta Thunberg, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
Since the climate crisis doesn't exist, how can we expect people to want climate action?
That's a fair point.
Just waiting for everybody to catch up, I can assume. Yeah. There is quite a long queue behind you.
Well, that's what we want, pal. We want people to join us, don't we?
So what could you say to people watching this before you get going again?
Not to pay the cash tax.
Yeah, don't do it.
Never enter into a contract that you shouldn't be paying in the first place.
What's happening in Birmingham regarding the payments?
30,000 people have actually not paid it, so they're actually cancelled a lot of those actual payments, which is how we've got to play it. It's a tax on a tax. We're already paying road fund licence and also 70%.
Test. You can't go on the road unless you've passed that emissions test. Yeah, they're still charging
Some arbitrary figure. It's an arbitrary figure, these emissions, Euro 5, Euro 6, what's that? They're putting categories on cars because of how old they are. That don't mean anything. There was an article in the Star was talking about this coach, the owner of a coach company, talking about his company, his buses on 0% emissions, but because of it's not on Euro 6 and up, then they have to be charged, even though it's a zero emission bus. So it's completely stupid. It's all arbitrary, like based off on no science or it needs to be scrapped now.
On TV again.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good, you?
Good.
Would you like to say anything to the people watching this?
Yes.
What would you like to say? I'll keep walking with you.
Yeah. I would like to say, and this is unfair. This is completely shouldn't be accepted by people. We should protest. We should raise our voices, and we should tell people that they are going to impose more and more restrictions in future. It's just the beginning. So keep protesting, keep raising voice, and keep our spirits high.
How can they afford to do all this? How can they afford all this colourful plan? You know, blocking it all off, but they can't afford to empty the bins properly.
Extra day for Sheffield from Monday. Starting this Monday. Yeah.
How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight.
You can see it all today. That's why you're out protesting. Because the world is falling apart. You cannot trust your governments. You cannot trust your leaders. But you can trust in Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And He will set you free. You want your problems to end? Turn to Christ. Call on home in the name of the Lord while you still can and be saved. So when you call upon the Lord...
You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil.
No cash tax! No cash tax! No cash tax! No cash tax! It's a pretext to go and stop the buses!
Yeah, because they never stop for you!
Never get one of parents.
You were speaking earlier, wasn't you? Would you like to speak straight to camera?
I'm doing BANAMAN.
Yeah, good. Oh, you know me.
Oh, yeah, subscribe.
Just quickly then, what were you talking about on the platform?
Well, I was talking about how I've set up a business with the hopes of creating something for my future and for my child's future. And I was so happy about that. And soon enough, I feel like it's been ripped away. I've been told to move out of the city, not coming here. I barely had enough to start it up. So when I did start it up, I was bloody happy about it. And that's just been pulled underneath my feet. And what am I going to do about it? I'm going to come out here and I'm going to say, no CAS tax! That's exactly. Thank you.
Say no to Sheffield Council's chargeable cleaners zone.
What's happening in Bradford, do you know?
Well, at the moment, Bradford Council have just announced what we're going to be spending our nice Euro 5 van drivers' money on. And they actually promised that the money we're going to go towards more clean air plans, but they've decided we're going to use the money to patrol schools, as in stopping antisocial parking, which I agree with to an extent, and slow traffic down around schools. But the money was never earmarked for that, so it's a bit of a disappointment. We'll be banging some complaints into the council. No doubt it'll pass over the heads. And a good old saying what we say about Bradford Council is there's nothing to see here.
That's not a real ground. You're getting lost at sea. Must be asleep.
Asleep at the wheel.
Well, in Leeds they are doing a 20-minute neighbourhood, and it's in this document, the Leeds Local Plan 2040. This was produced some weeks ago, and there's a consultation out at the moment, which I think came out 10th of February, but was not publicised for the people of Leeds to know about it until very recently. In fact, yesterday, the council set up a stall in the Merrion Centre in Leeds to inform people about it, but there's quite a delay from the 10th of Feb. The consultation runs out on the 24th of March.
These are for you to publicise to whatever you want to have a read, pass it on.
You best talk to people that.
Who's in charge?
I don't think there's anybody in charge. I don't think. I've got no idea.
It's
I
just
couldn't
we've got a load of
answer it.
football fans coming through. That's why they're asking.
I know
you.
Bramall Lake, right? Okay, but all I'm doing, I'm at back. This is back at.
So who is it?
I think you'd have to go right down there to find out because I'm just at back.
I know it's linked from Bradford as well because it's up and down country. What's everybody's not agreeing with this CAS tax.
I realise, yeah. All we want you to do is not go to the railway station for another half an hour till all football fans have gone through.
Well, you better go.
Can you show me who's in?
We don't know who's in charge actually because we just turn up.
Yeah, it's
you know.
It's
So
on the Facebook page.
I don't think there is anybody in charge.
We just turned up. To be fair.
So the police now are investigating who's in charge. Any luck?
Is there anybody?
I don't think so. You just have to investigate, I suppose. Have you given up? She's looking for someone to talk to about this. So she's looking for an organiser, but
we don't have any organiser.
No, I think that's the general gist of what she's got now.
name's Jude. I live in Sheffield. I'm 18 years old. I go to sixth form here in the city. I'm quite involved in quite a lot of public transport campaigns, and I'm really quite interested in what they're doing with the clean air zone. I disagree with it. Quite a few of these councillors and quite a few of the people who are supporting the councillors and quite a lot of members of different parties in the city all have varying views. Obviously they've got people who are supporting it have got to seem like they're a bit of a united front on this, but I've had conversations with people before where they're saying, well, why are we doing this to buses, for example? So one part of this clean air zone is that they're charging £50 for buses coming through the city centre. But one thing I would say to that, and conversations I've had with some of these councillors, is, well, a packed bus is going to have a far lower carbon footprint, far lower, air pollution emissions than, a car with one person driving. Per person, that emissions are going to be really low. So why are we charging buses? It's going to make it harder and harder for people to get into the city centre, and that cost might be passed on to people getting on buses, which would reduce, increase fares and reduce usage.
So generally, the councillors do fall out over this matter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So is it more about the method of how to deal with the alleged climate crisis and the clean air zones?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, that's the contentious point. I'd say that the vast majority of the population and the legislative population now would agree that we need to be taking massive action on climate change now, but the methods that people use to get that are different.
I meet with a lot of world leaders, and they say, I can't do anything because I don't have the support from voters. Well, how can you expect support and pressure from voters if you are not treating the crisis like a crisis? Since the climate crisis doesn't exist, how can we expect people to want climate action?
That's a fair point.
I think a lot of the the decision makers can be a bit too gung ho in that, and not sort of think about the unintended consequences that some of these policies can have. This affects working people, and what you need to be doing is creating a solution that allows for people to come in and out of the city centre in a green way. You don't just stop them coming into the city centre whatsoever. We need to be investing in more park and ride schemes. We need to invest in our public transport infrastructure. There's a lot of stuff, things like the Better Bus campaign have been saying about taking buses under public ownership. A lot of what Mayor Oliver Coppart's been saying has been similar to that. I think that's quite a good thing that we need to do first, because then we can start to implement policy that would actually change things, rather than just creating payments to small businesses that don't need to happen.
Some people might disagree with you about the seriousness of the climate change.
Yeah.
Since the climate crisis doesn't exist, how can we expect people to want climate action?
That's a fair point.
The thing that we need to focus on first, rather than this clean air zone, is getting better buses and trams that people can actually rely on.
How do businesses deal with that though? Because their livelihoods are affected now, and there's not much time for them to change their vehicles. Some of them people are still on finance; they can't change their vehicles.
100%.
So what happens to those people?
They're going to face massive, fares to them, and that's ridiculous.
Is that fair?
That's negative. No, not at all.
So the council are responsible for that?
Yes, absolutely. That's a very, very negative, unintended consequence that they need to face, because that's going to cause more and more issues during this cost of living crisis for small businesses. It's not acceptable.
Say no to gas tax.
A prime example is here, while we're in Sheffield, is the flooding that we get once or twice per year. That is a direct result of climate change. We've seen more and more per year, even in Western, global North countries. That is all because of climate change. Climate change isn't just about global warming and the world becoming hotter. It's about weather events becoming more extreme. We get more vicious precipitation at certain times of the year when we wouldn't expect it, and that can cause saturation, which causes flooding. It's different in every part of the world. Here in Yorkshire, it's about flooding because we have a lot of rivers running through, and we have a lot of precipitation. In places like South Africa, it's droughts because it intensifies weather that's already there. So what I would say to people who are sort of battling with themselves, thinking, well, is climate change as big of a deal as we say it does in this part of the world? It absolutely is.
Since the climate crisis doesn't exist, how can we expect people to want climate action?
That's a fair point.
£50, please.
I've had friends who've had their houses completely, you know, their knees up in water when they're walking around their kitchen. And I also know people who've had their businesses ruined and their sites destroyed because of flooding. Flooding is a direct cause of climate change, and, you know, it's a great example of why we need to be doing stuff about this. Another thing that they're trying to solve with the clean air zone is about air pollution, and that causes a lot of deaths. You know, in places like Burngreave has one of the highest levels of toxic air in the country, and that's, you know, that's a, you know, pretty busy site for buses and cars. It's about helping that as well. Some of the junctions around Ecclesall Road as well have some levels of air that are toxic. They get measured quite often, 4 times a year.
Since the climate crisis doesn't exist, how can we expect people to want climate action?
That's a fair point.
The City Council of Sheffield, very controversial people. Can I just say this? They are getting information from somewhere to come to the conclusions they do. Where do they get their information from?
Well, I think that there's quite a lot of misinformation online about climate change. You know, again,
where do the councils get their information from?
I couldn't tell you that. Because a lot of that will be introduced by individual councillors. A lot of that will be spread from an individual councillor who's looked at a source that might not be backed up. And I think that happens in every legislative system. We have a lot of disinformation online, people who are purposefully trying to spread misinformation online, and that can lead to a lot of difficulties for people, both in the legislative process and the general population, of understanding really difficult topics like climate change.
And do you think the councils misinform people sometimes?
I think so, yeah. I think every council across the country does. I wouldn't be able to comment, just because I live in Sheffield, I wouldn't be able to comment on whether they do it more than other places. But I think there needs to be more information, and I think the council could be doing more in terms of disseminating that information.
Greta Thunberg, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. You told people to vote for Joe Biden last year in a tweet, something you don't normally do, you said, get involved in party politics, but you made an exception. In your view, how has Joe Biden done on climate issues in his first 50 days in office? What grade would you give him?
Well, you shouldn't take that from me. I'm just a teenager, so I don't have the mandate to sort of give grades like that. My opinions on this doesn't matter. You should rather look at the science and whether his policies are in line with the Paris Agreement and to stay below 1.5 or even 2 degrees Celsius. And then you can clearly see that, no, it's not nearly enough in line with the science. And that's not me saying, that's just black and white, looking at the facts.
Yeah. What would you like to see him do to fight climate change that he isn't doing, that he said he won't do? Because his administration is saying we've set up a climate office, we've set up a climate czar, we've re-signed Paris, we're conserving more land, we're undoing a lot of what Donald Trump did. What would you like to see him do that he's not doing?
I mean, I understand that it's difficult, and to be honest, I would not want to be in a politician's position right now. I can't imagine how hard it must be. But I mean, I would just like him to basically just treat the climate crisis like a crisis. They have said themselves that this is an existential threat, and they better treat it accordingly, which they are not. I mean, they are just treating the climate crisis like as it was a political topic, among other topics, and treat it as a crisis. That's the number one step we need to do, and to spread awareness.
Is there a specific policy goal? If he rang you up and said, Greta, what should I do? What I can wave a presidential magic wand executive order. What should I do that I'm not? What would you say to him?
Well, nothing, because that's not democratic. An elected leader cannot do anything without support from voters, and I would not want anyone to do anything that would not have the support, because that would be undemocratic, and democracy is the most precious thing that we have, and we must not risk that. So what we need now is to raise awareness and to create public opinion to treat the crisis like a crisis, because if people are not aware of the crisis that we face, of course they won't put pressure on the elected leaders. So I would just tell him to tell the situation as it is. Because, I mean, yes, you could say, I meet with a lot of world leaders, and they say, I can't do anything because I don't have the support from voters. Well, how can you expect support and pressure from voters if you are not treating the crisis like a crisis? Since the climate crisis doesn't exist, how can we expect people to want climate action?
That's a fair point.